Dystonia is a pattern of chronic dysregulation that we have adopted in order to meet our fundamental psychological needs. Hello and welcome to Hope for Dystonia. My name is Shmuel. Today we're talking about a very special topic, dystonia and your emotions, essentially. And here's what I want you to understand about dystonia. Dystonia is not random. It is a pattern of protection that we have learned to adopt in order to defend what is most vulnerable within us. Said a bit more technically, dystonia is a pattern of chronic dysregulation that we have adopted in order to meet our fundamental psychological needs. What does this mean in practice? It means that when we were little, we learned that in order to be safe, in order to feel like we are good enough, in order to allow our nervous system to calm down and relax, we had to do certain things. We had to make sure that everybody around us was happy, for example, or we had to accomplish a lot, and that was the only way that we ever were told that we are good enough, right? We had to really be alert in order to protect us from dangers, physical or emotional, that were all around us. And a lot of us with dystonia, really everyone that I have worked with over the years, has had experiences in childhood that, were not always big, bombastic events, were often just something that went on for a long time, but experiences where they had to get dysregulated, right, in order to meet those fundamental psychological needs. So that being said, let's get started. I want to tell you about two people, Mary and John. Mary is a brilliant person. She has started many businesses. She provides beautifully for her family. And when I first met Mary, she immediately conveyed this sense that she was extremely busy. She had a lot to do, an endless to-do list. And you could tell that somewhere in her mind, there was always a thought that said, there's something better that you should be doing rather than sitting here and working on yourself. And this was part of a pattern for her. She was always constantly keeping herself busy to avoid being with what is happening within, right? And she felt that as long as she was productive, as long as she got things done, she was okay, she was good. And that was her way of managing her self-esteem in a way, right? So as long as I'm productive, I am a good person, I am a desirable member of the family, of society, you name it. And so because this was the precondition for her to feel good about herself, she never stopped. And at a certain point, Mary developed Blepharospasm. So she had a hard time keeping her eyes open. There was something within that was registering all of this as unbearable tension. And something within her that actually, secretly, wanted to keep the world out. And so Mary learned a lot of exercises, some through the Hope for Dystonia program, some through other programs that helped her get better. She learned to do new things with her face, and she reconnected with these muscles, she reconnected with the seventh cranial nerve. But really what needed to happen for Mary was that she needed to address the inner child that lived within her that was really struggling. And that inner child was begging to be told that she was good enough, and it is completely independent of anything that she does or doesn't do. That inner child needed not only to be told this, she needed to experience this. She needed to have the kind of embodied experience that allowed her to really relax in an embodied way. And she needed to find a new way to be herself, a new way of being Mary, a new way of going about work, a new way of going about relationships, and a new way of managing self-esteem. And this is really the heart of the Hope for Dystonia method, and specifically what I call EAI, Embodied Attachment Integration, right? Working with our inner working models so that we can find a new way of being ourselves, essentially. A way that does not force us to be constantly, chronically dysregulated in order to meet our fundamental psychological needs, in this case, self-esteem. So the second person I want to tell you about is John. And when I met John, he was in bad shape. The spasms in his face were really kind of difficult because they made it hard for him to speak. They made it hard for him to function. And he was very self-conscious about this. He didn't want to be seen by other people because he thought it was really weird that his face was doing these things, especially when he was around people. And sure, with John too, we did a lot of work with the cranial nerves, and he learned to even out as much as possible the flow of electricity on both sides of the face, and he learned certain exercises to retrain some of these specific muscles that were impacted. But with him too, what really needed to happen is that he needed to reconnect not only with his inner child, but really with his inner baby. And what I'm referring to here is pre-verbal trauma. It's the kind of trauma that we go through before we have words to make sense of it and of the world and ourselves. And John, as a baby, was not often held, and he was not often attuned to, right? So his primary caretakers did not wonder how John was feeling, and they did not try to soothe him when he was upset. And very possibly one of the strategies that John adopted as a baby was to either withdraw completely or to get into a state of extreme agitation. And what happens in pre-verbal trauma is that these splits get encoded in our subcortical structures, right? So in the very primordial parts of our brains. And so a certain split got encoded in John's brain. And this split said one side works really hard and the other side kind of withdraws and is forgotten. And what John discovered was that what he really needed was to work with this inner baby in such a way that the inner baby would feel held, in such a way that he would feel attuned to. And so he learned to do this through meditation. He learned to do this relationally with others. He learned to co-regulate with other people, with pets. He learned a number of skills that allowed a fundamentally different experience of what it's like to be in the world. And that is what is needed when there is that kind of wounding that is very, very ancient. And John began to find a sense of coherence and a sense of regulation, a possibility of peace that just was not on his radar before we did this kind of work. And so this is the type of shift that then allowed him to really learn something new when it comes to his face and so on. Why? Because he was able to let go of these patterns of guarding more and more, right? So retraining the face was only possible once the deeper patterns of guarding were released. And so this is what I want you to really take away from this video, that dystonia is an expression of protection. It's the intelligence of the body that did its very best with the information that it had at the time, right? And I know that some of you might be thinking, well, my dystonia started when I was an adult, or I didn't have trauma, all of these things. I get it. John didn't think he had trauma either. And he developed his dystonia as an adult as well. These patterns don't become physically obvious until maybe other factors come in and other straws get added to the camel's back until the camel's back proverbially breaks, right? And so in John's case, yes, there was some sort of accident with his occlusion, and there were some stressors that came on later in life. But really, those were the kinds of things that plenty of people go through, except his nervous system was not well equipped to deal with these things. So I hope this all makes sense. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you haven't checked out the Hope for Dystonia Recovery Roadmap yet, it's free. You can get it by clicking on the link in the description below. It is invaluable information that can help you make sense of these things and much more, and begin to have a relationship with yourself, your body, your symptoms, and your healing that is completely different. So thank you for your attention, and wherever your path takes you, I wish you plenty of good health and love and all the good things. Take care.